exigencies of the current moment. And we, as it were, knew that there was no other choice in terms of what the people of South Africa had determined in their vote, rather than to work together. So in a way, it is almost like the people of South Africa have determined that and forced us to work together. And you could say, well, others could have had a choice. Yes, they could have had a choice, just as they had a choice on a voluntary basis to be part of the government of national unity. And having entered, they now see that this government of national unity is actually aimed at advancing the interests of the people of South Africa. Of course, some of the participants may well want to advance the interests of their constituencies, as they call it. My constituency is the people of South Africa. And I'm getting my cabinet colleagues to say, we focus on the people of South Africa rather than try and focus on our own party interests. And much as we had manifestos, election manifestos, those election manifestos, yes, exist, but in many ways they are also interpreted and given meaning and life by the statement of intent, which is a framework that is all-encompassing, that deals with the challenges our country faces, that deals with the expectations of South Africans, that deals with the needs of South Africans. So any party that would seek, as a participant in the government of national, that would say we are leaving, they are actually leaving the people of South Africa. They are saying, we are leaving you, we are going into the wilderness, because a departure from the government of national unity is really going into the desert, into the wilderness, where there is not much future for yourselves. Now, that is why I say all of us know, who are participants, that any other alternative is just too ghastly to contemplate. We are tied together in the government of national unity in advancing the interests of South Africans. And the interests of South Africans is the glue that holds us together. So anybody who tries to undo that glue must know that we are actually destroying the hope of South Africans. We are actually shattering the confidence that South Africans have invested in the government of national unity. And also we will be dealing a blow against the confidence at an economic level that the GNU has engendered. Investors, as they look at what we've constructed, they say this is what we can have confidence in and invest in and take our participation in the economy forward. So, and growth of an economy is largely based on the confidence that investors have. So should anyone want to play with that flame of fire and put their finger to it, they should know that it could have an impact, negative impact on, say, the hopes of our people and the economy of our country as well. So that is why I continue to repeat that, yes, I have confidence in the durability of the GNU, because anything else is just too ghastly to contemplate. And that's why it will stand the test of time. And in many ways, it is what South Africans wanted when they went to the elections in May. With regard to the reforms, we have embarked on a journey of repositioning not only our country, but also the economy of our country by focusing on areas that have had a negative impact on our growth. We've had negative growth for the longest time. And when we looked at some of the reasons for it, we found that, yes, many of them were of our own making. You can count a whole range of areas that we are attending to. And some of them, yes, were objective, extraneous, but we have embarked on a process of reforms, 35 and more, where in attending to them, we want to reposition our country. And we have started. Operation Vulindlela, which is a cooperation, in the end, not only between Treasury and the Presidency, it's the whole of government. And what is it taking? It is taking cooperation of various government departments to work together. And one of the processes that I have been insisting on is to have an effective intergovernmental functioning system where we break down the silos and get government departments to work together, to talk to each other on a variety of issues, and rather than working in silos. So the progress we're making is largely based on the success that we are making in getting colleagues in government to sit down together, yes, in the various structures that I've set up, including bringing in other players, other key role players like business, like unions, and yes, like other people who can bring to bear their wisdom and their knowledge, including, you know, your academics and many other people. So that, to me, speaks to what I always say. Consult as many people as possible so that you can get buy-in, and through buy-in, you are then able to get things done. And so we are getting things done through the reform. Some of them will take time, and some of them, yes, will even take a few years to put to bed. But the important thing is that we have embarked on the journey of reforms, and we are already seeing benefits. The energy sector, the reforms that we've put in place, is institutional reforms, but at the same time is the way some of the entities should function. On the logistics, we have put together the team that includes business and government departments, and that is ongoing. We're also going to tackle how local government should function. We're also going to tackle issues around water, the visa system, and a number of others. We're making progress as we move on. So the reform process is one of the areas where I do believe that we will be able to move the needle and begin to see changes in our country. And already those who look at the functioning of the economy say, if we can remain committed to these reforms, we could have 3.5% growth, and I want us to do much more than that. And the other important thing, as I conclude on this question, is speed of execution and focus of execution, and making sure that what we say will be done, will be done. Now, armed with the government of national unity, colleagues, I do believe that we will get there.
Zondile.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Maybe a follow-up on the GNU, as yes. I think that's the matter that everyone really wants to be very clear about. I think my colleague did ask about your minister not attending the sign.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll touch on that.
Yes. And given that as president of the country, so you are not the president of the ANC-DA, or you are the president of the country, once you appoint those ministers, so you are responsible for them, so to speak. Here is a very important event, and then one of your employees, if I were to put it that way, doesn't show up. So any consequences, given that you are the president? Of course, I understand that you are in a GNU setup, but the fact of the matter is as president, you are empowered to act as president, not president of GNU, president of the Republic. And then on the durability of the GNU, Mr. President, you are on record as saying, come 2027, as ANC president, you are taking a back seat because you've done your time. We have seen the trend in the past few occasions. Actually, two of the presidents that you're following so never finished their terms. So as President Ramaphosa sits there and he has said he is not contesting 2027, do you see yourself completing your term, given that we are in the GNU situation? If you do, what will make you buck the trend that has already emerged? Perhaps the last one on the service delivery. on the service delivery, we are yet to witness another turnaround plan on local government. What is the problem? What is the core of the problem? I mean, the late Minister Pravin Gordhan also had his plan, Mr. Shicega. So now Minister Hlabisa. So just about every minister who comes on local government, they come with the plan, but nothing seems to change. I mean, you look at our towns and cities, things that are basic, Mr. President. Something like closing the pothole, putting up the street light. So things that really may not necessarily require a PhD. So what is the problem? Will this plan work? Thanks.
Yes, no, let me start off with what you say is, well, what was the reality, that the non-attendance of the Minister of Basic Education at the signing. That is an issue that deals with just the formalities. To me, the minister has been very clear. And she says, President, you are my boss, and I will execute the decisions of government. And if the bill is signed, that is exactly her mandate. And everybody's mandate in terms of executing government policy. And there I don't expect a doubt, hesitation, or even a refusal. Attendance is an issue, but it's a minor issue compared to her commitment to implement the law that I signed today. And even as I signed, just to listen to those who have requested that they would like to bring forward solutions, I did agree that we will halt the implementation of two provisions, two clauses, 4 and 5, so that we can allow various entities, including parties in the government of national unity. And let me say, quite motivated by the words and the messages from the government of national unity parties, I decided that it does not detract from what I did today by halting and suspending the implementation of these two clauses for a period of 90 days, 3 months. So to me, the focus now is on how we are able to get parties to find one another. They are supposed to come back to me and say, this is the solution that we have found. And I have, however, said that if they don't find a solution, the implementation proceeds. I have signed the law, and all I have done is to give a window for consultation for the 90-day period. And this is not the only law or piece of legislation where implementation is suspended on certain clauses. This midday, I had a consultation with Salga, who were raising issues about the electricity amendment bill. And they were raising the issue of the erosion of the revenue base of local government through the reforms that we have inaugurated. And their request was we would propose that you suspend the implementation of the definitions clause so that for now it reverts back to what it has been in the past while they find a solution. And once they've found a solution, they'll come back to me so that we can then sign on the full implementation. So it's not something unusual, and it's not about giving in to any form of pressure. It's about being very understanding, listening, and being able to give people the time, space, and opportunity to find one another and to try and reach agreement. Will I finish my term? I intend to. But in the end, I am elected by members of my party. And if members of my party have other views, I'm their servant and will do whatever members of my party do, direct. So I'm not a dictator and will never be, have never been. And I listen to the decisions and will implement the decisions of my party. So that for me is a given. And what has happened in the past is in the past. We are now in the present, and members of my party elected me for a full 5-year term, and I committed when I accepted nomination and being elected that I will serve, and I am here to serve, yes, the party, but overall, the people of South Africa. When it comes to local government, our local government has been beset by a number of problems, a variety of problems that have impacted on leadership, that have impacted on, that is political leadership, administrative leadership, as well as just general governance, and the challenges that many of our municipalities have had to face. A number of municipalities don't even have a revenue base. In a number of municipalities, there's just no capacity. And some of them, not even capacity to do precisely what you're saying. And there's been corruption. There's been fraud and corruption and the misdirecting of public funds. There's also been a disease of not spending money, where they cannot spend money and it is returned to the fiscal. So a combination of all those problems and challenges is what we now have to deal with. And of course, we've got to solve them all at the same time. The political leadership problem and the administrative leadership problem. That's why we want to professionalize the civil service. And we've also got to have greater focus on how money is spent. And through our laser focus now on issues of fraud and corruption, we are going to continue reducing incidents of corruption as more and more people are, followed up, and more and more people are investigated, and it all leads to prosecutions and tightening that up. But more importantly, I see the government of national unity, which is a combination of all parties, playing a key role in terms of addressing the political leadership issues. And I also want to see our local government focusing more on the important issues, yes, service delivery, but also being centers of economic development. We've hardly focused on that, and I want to now change the focus of our local government players to be on economic development. When you look at countries that have done well, China is a case in point. They focused on local economic development, and to grow the economy and get a conducive environment and climate for investment at the local level, which then can be extrapolated to the top, the national level. And of course, the national level must also create the laws, the climate, the reforms that are necessary to enable economic growth to be engendered also at the local level. So if we can focus on that, and Minister Tlhabisa and his deputy ministers are going to be focusing on that. They're meeting with their colleagues, the MECs and all that. So we will come up with a number of solutions to address the challenge of local government, because it is one of the key priorities of the Government of National Unity in terms of our statement of intent.
Can we get the mic to Carol? Carol Payton. Carol is over here. There's the mic. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. President.
Hi, Carol.
Thank you, Vincent. My first question is about the GNU. Okay, this process committee, technical committee that you're talking about,
Yeah.
is as a dispute resolution kind of committee. I know it was in the statement of intent, but it was not actually, to my knowledge, set up, and there was some kind of reluctance on behalf of the ANC to set this thing up. How will it work? What will it do? When you say is it a clearinghouse, what goes into that committee? Does it discuss policy issues? Does it discuss issues that are going to be on the cabinet agenda? What does it actually discuss? And does everyone sit in it? Do all 10 parties, or is it 10? I think it's 10 now.
Yes.
Parties sit in this processing committee. I'll ask my other one afterwards. Thanks.
Oh, you don't want to ask it now?
No, I'll ask after this.
After this.
I may forget. That's good. She's very clever. Carol, yes. The processing committee is a committee that is going to process matters, not only disputes, but matters of importance that need to be discussed. And let me immediately hasten to say, it does not supplant cabinet. It does not supplant the clusters in government. It is a platform that allows Government of National Unity parties to discuss matters of importance. And of course, because we're right at the beginning, we still have to determine which type of matters should go there. Even as we met over dinner, some of the colleagues started saying, why don't we discuss security? Why don't we discuss this? But we then said immediately that some of those issues have to be discussed in the government structure. We should start delineating issues of importance to us. And one of those, for instance, would have been, Carol, once I took the decision to suspend 4 and 5 of the Bella Act, I took it upon myself to call them all. I tried calling them all. I didn't reach all of them because some of them were traveling in Russia and all over. I felt it behoved on me to communicate with my colleagues to let them know what my approach is going to, and my decision was on the Bella Act, so that they are not surprised when they hear it in the media. And those I spoke to were very appreciative, even if they were not part of the actual different view collective. So we will, as we move on, as we cross this river, we will feel our way on the stones and know which issues will be discussed there. And where there are going to be issues of difference and disputes, they will also be discussed there. But issues that have to be handled in government will be handled in government. So it's kind of difficult right now to say which issues. The good thing with all that is that it opens channels of communication. That, to me, is what's important, that we are able to talk about issues before they become big issues that can cause problems amongst us. There's nothing as good as communication and consultation, even at that level, because that tends to smoothen the way of getting approval, of getting agreement, even at another level, be it government level. So that is what will happen. If there are disputes, as there will be, through this processing structure, we will be able to handle those. Will all parties participate? Yes. Even those that are not in the executive will also participate, as they are part of the parties that sign the statement of intent. So there's going to be a very good balance when it comes to this.
Sorry, this isn't my second question, but will the NHI be discussed there? It's not my second question.
Well, let me say to you, the business community, Business Unity South Africa, written me a letter, and they have said, President would like to discuss the NHI with you. And I had a long discussion with the Minister of Health. And I said to him, we must never say to South Africans, we will not meet you, and we will not discuss anything with you. So anything can be discussed, because it is in discussing matters that you are able to find solutions. Those who say, no ways, I will never talk to you, always run into serious problems. So yes, the NHI will be discussed with business this coming week, and we will see what solutions or proposals are put forward. I'd like to hear their views, but I'm actually going to say, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. And that is how I underpin my approach to problems with. Even with ministers, I'm saying to them now, please don't bring me problems. I want solutions. And you can then categorize the solutions into various options. You can say, President, this is the best option, this is the medium one, and this is the worst one. And as you do that, cost them all. What is the political cost going to be? What is the economic cost? What is the social cost going to be? So that I have found to be one of the better ways of approaching solving of problems. So, answer your question directly, yes, it will also be discussed.
Thank you. My second question is, I think we would agree that the economy is not going to grow unless we get mining right and unless we get internet connectivity and access to the internet right.
Yes.
But at the moment we've got a Department of Minerals and Energy that took 5 years to put together a tender for a cadastral system. It doesn't seem like the most equipped organization to do what's needed. We also have a policy, a mining jurisdiction, that requires now a 30% equity to black shareholders who cannot pay for it, plus a 10% free carry. No other mining jurisdiction has that. And then related to that is the issue of Starlink. The fact that Starlink is now in 70 countries, 15 African countries, and it's not here, and we don't seem to be any closer to getting it. And the reason we believe from SpaceX is that they will not apply to they cannot apply to ICASA because of the 30% equity requirement. Are you absolutely set on keeping those policies, or do you think that there is now room for us to actually say we need to grow the economy and that needs to come first?
We are set on implementing those variety of reforms that are going to enable our economy to grow. We need to put the interests of our people and the interests of South Africa ahead of anything else. I am troubled by the number of people who are unemployed. And to create jobs, we need to implement a variety of reforms. And I want to start off with something that you didn't ask. When we were in China, one of the issues that was visa reforms. Visa reforms that we have embarked upon have been too restricted and too narrow. And it was when we were in China where the Chinese people and the government were saying, we need visas to come to South Africa. It takes us 4 to 6 months to apply for visas. We have to send bank statements. We have to travel to central cities like Beijing or Shandong or wherever. And we need more access to your country because we've got millions of Chinese who want to come to South Africa for tourism purposes. And we've had some fear that it's almost like 1.4 billion people from China want to come and live here. They don't want to come and live here. They want to visit. And when they visit, they come with a wallet full of foreign currency that we need. They want to go to our game lodges. They want to go to our beautiful cities. They want to go to our guest houses and spend money. And I've said we now need to reform our visa processes to allow tourism to grow and burgeon as a sector of our economy. And our approach has been a bit restricted. And I've said let's have more ambition. Let's be a more inviting country to tourists. Of course, bearing in mind that the security element has to be top of mind for us. But I've said, then it means that we must be more security-wise and be able to catch those who come with ill intent to our country. It should never mean that, oh, we fear that all the thieves and the drug lords and so on will come to our country, so we close. I said, we must now upgrade our methods, our ways of catching them, but allow more and more tourists to come to our country. Now, coming to mining. Now, one of the problems that we've had in government is over-reliance on outsourcing. We want to outsource everything. We don't want to build capacity in the state. And through outsourcing and not going to headhunt those people who know how to do things, we then get caught up in long processes that at times are informed by the PFMA, they are informed by some of our state structures. So the mining cadastral one was trapped in bureaucracy for the longest time, with our CETA saying, no, we are examining this one and that one, and it took a long time for that. And I've later said to the minister, why don't we see how this is done and do it better ourselves rather than just to keep outsourcing everything. The regulations we have for black economic empowerment are regulations and laws that are meant to increase the participation of black South Africans in our economy. And let me say that mining, having been involved in the mining industry, albeit from a worker's point of view, was dominated by just a few white-owned companies. It's now opened up. We've got more and more black people participating in the industry. And it so happens that even as those laws are put out, investors do factor them in, they do internalize them and say, this is the law of the country, we will abide by that law. We want to invest in your country to make profit from whatever mineral or market that you have. So I have not seen that as your major deterrent. It has been slow implementation on our side, for instance, on the cadastral system, which we should have speeded up. It's now being speeded up, it's now going to fall into place, and it's now going to be implemented. On, for instance, internet availability and access, yes, Starlink has made an approach to us, and they are operating in 70 countries. And having had a discussion at a number of levels with some of the people who are involved in that company, we said, we are going to process your desire to come and invest in our country, as we see great benefits for internet connectivity for the people of South Africa. And we will also deal with some of the concerns that current players have in that space, because they have raised their concerns, as you would know, and of course fears and concerns is what they've raised. But as I said earlier, Carol, it's the interests of the people of South Africa that I want to focus more attention on, and the fact that we need to grow our economy. So as we then implement our reforms based on precisely that approach, we will be able to overcome even those types of problems and even address the issue that is now being processed having to do with Starlink. So I know about it and have even, yes, I know about it.
Do you like Elon Musk?
Let me say to you, I have had, Elon Musk is South African born American now. I have had discussions with him and have said, Elon, you've become so successful and you are investing in a variety of countries. I want you to come home and invest here. So he and I are going to have a further discussion about a variety of things. Whatever one may think about him, he is a hugely successful business person, and having had those discussions with him to advance the interests of South Africans, and he runs widespread businesses, and in many ways he's already invested in South Africa through his X online process, which used to be Twitter. So he's already present in our lives as South Africans. So I will be taking further discussions about how we can attract Elon Musk to come and invest here in South Africa.
Okay, can we take the mic to Haja Omaji?
Good afternoon, Mr. President. So my question is not on the GNU.
Oh, good.
But it is more difficult. It is on leadership.
Okay.
I'm glad you said Nelson Mandela's whispering in your ear again. And he is. I'm glad you laid the ground for the consequences should the GNU fail. But when you came, before you were in this high office, you promised to be the bus driver, the pilot that navigated us into the Hudson, run government like the CEO. And the lived experience of South Africans did not change significantly enough. And perhaps your public service was also want to go slow, and workers want to go slow. That's why the ANC did badly. So I want to know how hands-on you intend to be with the GNU. Because it's what you pulled off with the GNU, what you pulled off with the BRICS expansion, most people thought impossible until it was done. But on issues of service delivery at local government level, immigration, health, education, cost of living, in a country where we have cows and chickens, we shouldn't be paying the prices we are for eggs and cheese. We need you to be hands-on on the issues and not just say, I've appointed a minister. Because even some of the business people I speak to, Mr. President, say to me, they still today believe You know the right thing to do. But you don't do it until the crisis has already done the damage. So I want to know what the way forward is in terms of your hands-on role. And then as an addendum to that, workers in the public service, I argued for some time before elections, want to go slow. Doing not every public servant, but from frontline officers, Home Affairs, SASSA officers, schools, hospitals, they were still operating as though we were in COVID-19, or they were constantly offline. They were doing as little as possible. So how is the GNU going to succeed if you still have the same governance structure running it?
That's an easy question. It's not difficult. We now have a new political dispensation, or era, as it were, with the involvement of a variety of people from different political parties, many of whom have already started demonstrating that they are so enthusiastic, almost like new brooms, to sweep in a room, and their vigor is something that one is always in great admiration of. And that leads to a government process that is going to just keep on getting better. Some of the ministers who've come in have come to me and said, "Oh, President, in this department, we've got such good people. This DG is so good." And in others, they say there's a lot of improvement that needs to be done. And my task in taking things forward is, yes, to focus on what needs to be done, supporting the ministers. I have appointed the ministers, yes, to do the work, but at the same time, I will not seek to lose focus on what needs to be done. What we've sought to do in the past 5 years, or in the last term, is to put in place systems to repair the damage that was done in the past. And I must admit that that has taken quite a bit of time, more time than what one would ordinarily have anticipated. But I think we're now becoming more and more well aware of what really needs to be done. I gave you a very good example of, say, for instance, tourism. In tourism, where we've kind of been laid back. I remember when I went to Kenya, and President Ruto said to me, "President, I'm glad you've come for a state visit. I'd like South Africa to open up visas for business people from Kenya to come to South Africa." And I said, "No, that's fine. We can do that." And he says, "No, you are not leaving until we have reached an agreement on this." And we immediately called our officials and said, "This must now be solved." And so what did we do? We increased the tempo, we increased the focus, precisely what we're now going to do with a number of countries, for instance, like China, and a number of others, because we already know what needs to be done to increase our level of economic growth. Similarly with what we need to do with the reforms, similarly with what we need to do with addressing the priorities that we have set up. And I would like to say that there's increased tempo, there's increased vigor now, because we've spent the better part of the past term putting in place systems and mechanisms that would enable us to know how we repair the damage that was done in the past, and how we can then press a number of levers to move the country forward. So we're going to be focusing on that. And I'm in a way blessed that I have a team of ministers who say that the GNU must be seen to be having a real positive effect. If we don't do so, the people of South Africa are going to judge us harshly. So infused with that type of approach, I do believe that we will be able to make progress. I firmly believe that.
Can we take the mic to Shoba, Sunday Times?
Thank you, Mr. President.
He's too relaxed.
I know that you've said that you find the non-attendance of the minister as an issue, but a minor issue.
Yes.
But aren't you worried that this might set a precedent for your ministers going forward? Like the question that the previous colleagues asked, give an impression that maybe you are not in charge of the situation. Thank you.
No, I'm not concerned about that. I think we need to know that the issue of the Bella Bill has been a challenge, has been a challenge even from the party where she comes from. And I think if one puts that into context, one will understand. But I want to look at the positive. I want to look at the positive and say the minister has been unequivocal in clearly saying, once the president signs this bill, I'm going to implement it. And that, to me, is the bottom line. If the minister were ever to say, I will not implement it, then she'll be fired. Plain and simple. So, as far as I'm concerned, I then put that in context and say, non-attendance, yes, it's a matter of concern, but the more important issue for me would have been, I will not implement, and then I would fire her.
Let's give the mic to Bronwyn, AFP. Bronwyn is over here.
Hello, Bronwyn from AFP.
Of course.
As you said before, the GNU was reassuring for the international community as well as many South Africans. It's kind of early days, but already we've had this, issue which has been mass friction, really, which is disappointing. You said the consequences of this not working would be ghastly, but what are the tangible risks for South Africa of the GNU not working? My first question. The second question, if I can ask it now, the United States has said that it would support Africa having 2 seats on the Permanent Security Council, 2 permanent seats on the Security Council, without veto. What is your reaction to that, and how would one go about choosing those 2 seats? Thank you.
A failure of the government of national unity would be quite ghastly for South Africa, because the emergence, or the establishment rather, of the government of national unity is what has lifted the confidence and the spirits of many in our country, and many that one speaks to say that we feel that we now have a direction to move forward. Prior to the elections, people were concerned about where the country was going to. Investors were holding back, and our economic growth trajectory seemed to be at a stall. But now, I think the government of national unity is able to open the valves, open many opportunities. So it's opened up great opportunities for the growth and the development of our country. And it is for this reason that I say the risks would be very, very high for the failure of the government of national unity. We therefore have no option but to move forward and consolidate the government of national unity. The good thing, all the parties that are the government of national unity, and they've even said we are not leaving. We are staying with the government of national unity, much as they may vocalize areas of disagreement or discomfort on this and that issue. So that is what gives me confidence about the not only stability but the durability of the government of national unity. That is the best thing that we now have to move the country forward. Any other option, as far as I'm concerned, would really not work for this country at this point in time. The view from the United States about supporting 2 seats on the UN Security Council is to be welcomed. It basically shows that what we've been saying over years, that a continent of 1.3 billion people not being represented on an important structure like the United Nations Security Council, in fact, diminishes the important role of the United Nations. So that type of statement coming from the United States is to be welcomed. And of course, they underpin it by saying non-veto. And we've got already a number of countries that are members, additional members of the UN Security Council from time to time, and many African countries do participate on an ongoing basis. So we would argue that we, too, those who are added, must also enjoy the same right that the 5 permanent security members have. Because adding 2 African seats without the same rights means that we become second-class citizens once again. And we demand and require that we should have serious participation on the UN Security Council. But the good thing is that in the past there's been reluctance in those types of bodies to even contemplate a permanent seating of Africa on that body. So there's progress, there is movement. We now need to move the needle a little bit forward and say we cannot have second-class participation as Africa on the UN Security Council. How would Africa go about choosing those 2? In the end, it's got to be an AU, African Union decision. So it's not for us as South Africa to vocalize that. It must be a decision that will be taken by the African Union, and we will abide by whatever decision is taken by the African Union.
Slendile Bloomberg, she's over here. Thank you.
Sanibona Sithembile.
Oh, Sithembile, sorry.
Morning, afternoon, Mr. President. The matter of the pressure on public finances, I wonder if you can weigh in on that. Previously, you said that cutting spending is not the solution, and obviously the finance minister was able to pull the rabbit out of the hat with GFECRA. But going forward, what really is the long-term solution, given that it is an ongoing risk? Can I ask my second question after your response, please?
On which issue, Jen?
I'm saying GFECRA, it was the once-off that was able to alleviate some of the pressure on public finances.
Oh, yes, yes.
But what is your view on the long-term solution to alleviating the pressure?
Well, we came up with this option, and we still continue to have a budget deficit. And it is this that we need to keep on addressing. And we are continuing to hope that our revenue base and our revenues will keep going up so that we have more financial resources to be able to fund what needs to be funded going forward. So it is a matter that we're continuing to address. We came up with a brilliant solution in the past period, and we're hoping that we will be able to find other solutions going forward.
The second question then is on foreign policy. Obviously, you had the ICJ, Russia and Ukraine. There was a lot that was suddenly thrown away in the last administration. I wonder what your new strategy is for foreign policy in this administration. There's the chairship of G20 that's coming up, but there's also matters around reconfiguration of some of our trade relations. We are exporting so much raw materials and not getting much back from some of our trade partners. Can you just maybe weigh in on some of your thinking around that? I mean, Minister Lamula has been speaking a lot about the idea of economic diplomacy. Do you support that, and what does it look like? Thank you.
Of course, economic diplomacy is a government policy approach on our foreign policy. We want to lay more emphasis on economic diplomacy, and he's already started what I see as a wonderful job of getting the economic ministers to meet and to see how best we can collectively, not only DTIC or himself, collectively foster and advance our economic policy, and that's where economic diplomacy comes in. And already colleagues on cabinet are enthused. They are really enthusiastic about this, and we're going to be focusing more and more on our trade dealings with a number of countries, and also capacitating our trade offices in various countries. For instance, when we were in China, some of the business people said, we are lacking capacity in dealing with a very big market, the second largest economy in the world, in China. We need at the diplomatic offices that we have to up our game, to increase capacity. And increasing that capacity will mean that the economic departments need also to increase their own presence in those countries. Agriculture must do so, and not only trade and industry, but a number of others. And we also need to look at our trade agreements. We are going to be having another session with the EU. We were meant to have it last year. We were now going to have it either later this year or in the new year, to look at our trade dealings so that we can tighten up and deal with some of the challenges. For instance, we've got challenges now when it comes to citrus. And business people, much as we've embarked on a legal solution process, are saying we need a political solution. And the political solution will be found when the EU and South Africa have their own summit to be able to deal with matters that are germane to our economic dealings with each other. China, President Xi Jinping was very strong in saying we need to be exporting more to their market, more finished goods. And he actually laid out a package for the rest of the continent, but being the most industrialized country on the continent, in the end, it is South Africa that is going to occupy that space of being able to manufacture more goods with the market that China is opening up more without heavy-duty tariffs or without tariffs at all, so that we can penetrate that market. I have found that a number of countries that we deal with are really supportive of our approach in saying we now no longer want to lay more emphasis on exporting raw minerals. And that, in many ways, has even come as a wonderful surprise hearing from one of the European countries who are supportive of Africa no longer being expected just to export raw minerals, and saying we need to start manufacturing processes in Africa. And in saying so, they were also saying that they would be willing to support that. So we need investments in processing the minerals, the raw materials that we produce, because that will move us up the industrialization chain. We will add more value to our raw materials or raw minerals, and that is a message that is beginning to gain currency. And we now need investors. We now need the private sector to realize that there will be a market for beneficiating our raw materials, and there are great opportunities. And of course, we ourselves have to do a lot. We have to create an enabling environment. And one of those is availability of energy. Because it's all very well to talk about beneficiating your minerals. If you don't have sufficient energy, you're just whistling in the wind. We also need to create a conducive environment for those who would want to invest in that type of sector, to be able to invest. So we need to be attracting investors. And that means that we've really got to be more proactive. And this is the way that we are now going to be moving forward.
Can you give the mic to Nelly Payton from Reuters? She's over here. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. President.
Hello, Nelly.
I'd like to ask you about triple BEE legislation.
Yes.
Both Minister Chow and the Commissioner Matona have suggested that the law needs to be strengthened, since compliance is declining, and every year there's more and more companies that just don't submit their reports. I'm wondering if you would support strengthening that law in some way, whether it's adding more incentives or some kind of penalties for not complying, and if that's something that the ANC could do in this context in which other parties would be sure to contest it.
Yes. Yes, there has been lapses in enforcing the laws, not only on BE, but employment equity as well. And that has led people to have a sense that we need to tighten the laws, and we need to compel companies to adhere. And I would say you need to incentivize them to comply, and find ways in which we encourage them. I see these as enabling and empowering laws, and it is only when there's a total refusal and reluctance that you need to apply penalties. But in order to get companies to live up to what the law says, you show them the advantages. What are the real advantages? And in a way, when companies are shown that there are great advantages to comply with the law, they do, and when they are more alive to the penalties and the punishment, then they do tend to comply. So my take is, where there's total refusal, yes, we need to tighten. This is so because really BEE, much as people continue saying, scrap it, do away with it, is standing our country in good stead, because it is including more and more black South Africans to play a key role in the economy of their country. What we've had in the past has been really an abomination. It has been really terrible, where just a minority race has been playing the key role in the economy of our country. And the modern times that we are in, the democratic period we are in, means that we must move away and walk away from that type of era. And I'm finding that this has become an accepted practice. People are now more aware that there's got to be employment equity and black economic empowerment. Sometimes there are exceptions, and those are the exceptions that we need to apply penalties to. The general approach is that I had a meeting earlier today with a French company who said, the CEO said to me, you know, Mr. President, in France we have a law that dictates that ownership must be X amount by French citizens. And he says, what you are seeking to do here is not foreign to us. And I said, whoa, say it out loud on rooftops so that South Africans can hear it. Because these laws do exist in other countries. For instance, in China, they will say, come and invest in our country, but we want X percentage to be owned by Chinese. And in my view, that should be the done thing, because there's nothing wrong in participation in your economy by local people, by indigenous people. And this is what we are seeking to do. In our case, it's even much more so. I mean, France may have it as a nice thing to have. But in our case, it is existential for black South Africans who were completely excluded from the economy of their country. So it is about our existence as South Africans. And that's why we say it must be done. And we must drum the message in that this should be the done thing. Because it's nothing foreign. It's done in many other parts of the world, including the so-called developed countries. So I think on this one, we are unequivocal, unashamed, and very, very focused, because I've often argued that our economy has been almost like a car that has 6 cylinders that's been operating on 3 cylinders forever and a day. And it has not been operating at full throttle and the full power that it can operate in. So we are saying, by having black economic empowerment, employment equity, you are opening the valves. And then you are going to be able to release the raw power that this economy can have. Because it must be good to have all people in a country to be involved in the economy of the country. And you look at it, it is almost happening on its own. Look at the market that is opening up. You know, in the past, many companies, even as they advertise things, used to advertise only through white models to a white, small market. And post-democracy, black people started exploding into the middle class, into a spending class. And they started living up to it, because now your adverts now speak to the market that they now see. And we say, you cannot just want to exploit that black market. You've got to be prepared and willing to get that black market to be the productive side of your market. The productive side of your economy. They must be involved in not only participants, they must manage your economy, they must be equity participants in your economy. And on this, we don't turn back. On this, we move forward. It's an existential challenge and problem for us. So it must be done, and it will be done as we move forward.
Natasha, Financial Mail. She's over here.
Thanks, Vincent. Thank you, Mr. President. My first question relates to the GNU, but more provincially. The Gauteng province, which is the heart of our economy, it's the biggest population in the country. It's currently being run by a minority government.
we've seen the instability in our various metros in the province due to coalitions, unstable coalitions. Is this an ideal situation for you, Mr. President? And do you think that a more stable solution is needed for the Gauteng province, which is sort of the heartland of our economy? The second question is regarding the NPA and the Justice Minister. On Friday, there was a bit of a spat in Parliament around the Zondo Commission archives. I don't want to involve you in that, but I do want to ask you, do you believe that the NPA should have unfettered access to those archives? The Zondo Commission took 4 years. It came at a huge cost to taxpayers. Investigators did a really excellent job, and the NPA deems it critical to prosecuting state capture-related cases. Do you think that they should have unfettered access to those archives? Thank you, Mr. President.
The answer to the desire and the quest by the NPA to have access to the State Capture Commission archives is yes, they should. The NPA is the entity, the body that deals with prosecutorial processes in our country. In order for them to do so effectively, they should have access to sources of evidence that they can tap into. So the nation paid a lot of money to get that information on the table and their files, and therefore there is no reason why they should not have access. What the people of South Africa want is to see justice done, and they want to see follow up on the State Capture Commission processes, and so therefore we need to empower and enable the National Prosecuting Agency to be able to have information and be able to follow up cases. On Gauteng, what we set up at the national level is a broad framework of a government of national unity process in our country, and much as I did not sit at the ringside, being the president of the governing party, got to know exactly what the challenges and the intricacies that were given rise to by the manner in which the discussions were proceeding. And in the end, we've ended up with a product which is a minority government, but it's a government that, in my view, is functioning. Premier Lessufi and his colleagues have put together a government that is able to take the province forward, focusing on the priorities of the statement of intent, the government of national unity. So I don't see much of a contradiction there. And of course, along the way, if parties can find their way clear to seek to participate, to strengthen that government, of course, that will be welcomed. At the local government level, the process that we are going to be fully embarking on is to stabilize local government and to make sure that we deal with the political problems and challenges that are given rise to by the unstable coalitions. A number of coalitions that have been put in place have either been unstable and they have not been as effective and efficient as they should be in dealing with the challenges of our people, particularly service delivery and all that. So that is going to be an ongoing process. I mean, Johannesburg has now sort of arrived at a level where we can have a measure of stability, and similar processes may well be opted for to have stability, more stability than the level of instability, and to have capable people who will be able to run our municipalities. So I am hopeful that we will be able to stabilize local government through the various initiatives that will be embarked upon.
Solo Fellow, KFM, over here.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Afternoon, Mr. President. Mr. President, my question relates to the genocide in Gaza. The 28th of October is the deadline for South Africa to submit evidence, and we have seen reports that Israel is actually lobbying the U.S. Council to really speak to South Africa to say, please ask them to drop this case. Have you had any engagements with the U.S. regarding this, number one? But number two, are you confident come the 28th of October you would be ready to submit all that is required?
We have not been approached by any government, least of all the United States, to drop our case at the International Court of Justice. Our case proceeds. The preparations are underway to present what they call the memorial, a huge tome of hundreds and hundreds of pages, which I will also have an opportunity to go through before it is submitted to the court. We've had the privilege and the honor, really, of being joined in our case by a number of other countries. A number of other countries have raised their hands and said, we want to be part of the case that South Africa has brought. A number of countries have said, we support the move or the initiative that was taken by South Africa. And that has humbled us and heartened us, really, that much as people in other countries would have thought that our case amounted to nothingness and it's a no consequence case, many have seen this as being an important case to deal with the genocide that is unfolding in Gaza. And we've also been thanked, of course, by the Palestinians themselves and a number of other countries. So we are headstrong. We are determined to go ahead with this case because in our case as South Africa, it is about living up to what we stand for, the protection of human rights and the support for the Palestinians to have their own state and have self-determination and to live in peace side by side with the state of Israel. But also at the same time, to continue arguing that the genocide must stop and there must be a ceasefire. And similarly, there must be a return to of the hostages. So we are standing firm on that position. We have not seen any reason why we should halt, stop, and do away with our case. And we have not been asked to do so. And let me hasten to add that, of course, those who may well want to ask us will have to approach us and hear, and we will hear them. And we will want to hear the rationale why that should be so. But I cannot talk much about something that has not happened. But we are proceeding with our case, and we're going to file at the time that we've been given to file by.
Thank you, Mr. President. My follow-up question just has to do with GBV. We have seen over the past couple of days there's a woman who has been sentenced to 10 years for murdering her alleged abuser. Mr. President, just a couple of months back, you signed into law the GBV bill. However, we did see some women organizations saying that, but what is in the law, what you've signed was not what we agreed on during summits. Mr. President, can you give confidence to the people of South Africa to say, I am dealing with GBV in this country, and women and children be rest assured this will come to the bottom of?
Well, I do not want to be like another leader in the world who says I'm the best in this, I'm the only one who does this, but I'm one of those leaders who has spoken the most on gender-based violence. It's been a top-of-mind topic for me, and in nearly every speech that I give, I do talk about gender-based violence and call upon men in South Africa to respect the rights of women and to stop the dastardly actions that they commit against women. And I have engaged extensively with groupings that represent women in our country. And they've also encouraged men to sign up to the pledge that I signed on Women's Day in
Northern Cape.
in the Northern Cape, where men should pledge that they will never raise their hands against women, they will never sexually assault women, they will respect women and all that. And I continue to call on the men of South Africa to sign up to that pledge, because it's a very important pledge. You know, that pledge was initiated by young men, young boys at St. Benedict High School. I was so impressed by what they did, and I felt that we need to appropriate it ourselves at the national level as adult men and follow in the footsteps of young boys and have a pledge because they signed it. So I do continue to call on men to stop the violence that is being perpetrated against the women of South Africa. But at the same time, in passing those laws, we did consult with women groupings in our country, and to the extent that we may not have done completely what they may have wished, we need to have an engagement on that, because I'm all for tightening up the laws. And if we need to tighten the laws to deal with gender-based violence, I'm in support, full support of that. And I've also called on the women of our country to come forward and participate in the structure that we have set up legislatively now, the council that we have set up, gender-based violence structure, so that together we can stem the incidence of gender-based violence in South Africa. For me, this is a scourge, it's a pandemic that needs to be dealt with effectively. But we can only do that when we work together. And indeed, it requires men to be involved as well as active participants in stopping gender-based violence.
Last question, Mr. President. Ndebo Mokobo? From the... Oh, are you covered?
No. I've got a question.
Please proceed.
Is it on? It's fine. Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Ndebo. I'm with the SAPC. Yes, Mr. President, I'm sorry to bring you back to the GNU again.
Oh, you love the GNU so much.
I'm sorry. Mr. President, you said an alternative to the GNU is too ghastly to contemplate, sounding like the GNU is the best thing to have ever happened to South Africa, and more sounding like the ANC or governing, your party, it's better off under the GNU than governing the country on its own. I don't know whether I was reading too much into what you were saying, or maybe I'm too interpreting. I just want to understand, don't you think that maybe being in the GNU, the ANC's continued existence under the GNU will ultimately dislodge the ANC out of power? And maybe secondly, as my party in short, I was one of those who were thrilled to really know that South Africa is celebrating 30 years of democracy. Looking at 1994 up until today. 1994, there was a dream of a better life for all. But 30 years later, things have changed. I'm even shy to mention some of the setbacks that we've gone through over the past 30 years. But what do you think should be a rallying call for South Africans as we go into the next decade, the fourth decade of our democracy and freedom? What do you think should be the rallying call, thinking of a better life for all in 1994? Thanks, Mr. President.
Well, the rallying call should continue to be to have a better life for all South Africans. That rallying call was relevant in 1994. It continues to have great currency even today, because what else would we call what we are seeking to do? What we are seeking to do is to deliver a better life for South Africans. And life that continues to improve, a life that is based on the lived experiences of our people, that improves, that gets better. There has been improvement in the lives of South Africans over the 30 years. Anybody who cares to look back will see that there has been improvement. And you just need to look at a number of elements. When we get into power, less people had electricity. Today, more people have electricity. Less children were in school. Today, more children are in school. Less children were in universities, black children. They are now in universities. And less people got even your pensions. They now get their pensions. More people get their pensions. The social grants and all that. There were less black people in the middle class. We now have a middle class that has grown by leaps and bounds. And our healthcare system did not fully cater for black people as it does today. We built more clinics, we built more hospitals. Yes, there are challenges. There are mishaps. There have been mishaps along the way, which we have admitted to. There have been a number of other things that could have been done better. But that does not detract from the fact that, yes, there has been progress in the lives of South Africans. Of course, South Africans deserve more, and they deserve better. They deserve much more than what is currently available. I travel a lot to many other countries, both on our continent and on other continents. And when you look at what we are seeking to do and the citizen focus that we are having on our people, it is something that we are making progress on. Less people were employed in South Africa. When we got into office, it was like, say, at the most 8 million people. Today we have 16 million people who are employed. We have created jobs. More people today are unemployed because we've been facing more and more people coming into the job market. On an annual basis, more than 500,000 people come in. And the economic growth has been at less than desirable level. So we have our challenges, but we've had great progress. We've made progress. And there are moments when we do need to look back. You remember what Nelson Mandela wrote in his book. He ends his autobiography by saying, this has been a long road to freedom. I've traveled long and far. I've climbed hills, and now I sit on top of a hill, and I can look at the vista, the beautiful vista around me. But lo and behold, I still have to climb more hills. And he says, I must set on my journey and go and climb the other hills. And this is the story of our life. We've climbed some hills where our people were really living in terrible degradation. We've been able to climb some hills, but we still have more hills to climb. We still need to summit some hills to deliver a better life to our people. So it's a continuous quest to make sure that South Africans lead a better life. We are not yet where we want to be. But believe you me, my dear brother, we are on that journey. We have embarked on that journey. And the GNU gives us a greater opportunity to be able to also get there. Now, we need to remember that the ANC was disappointed with the outcome of the elections. The ANC has been the sole governing party, bar the inclusion of one or two parties along the way, for the 30 years. And 30 years later, the people of South Africa said, no, we are not going to give you the outright majority. In fact, what this meant for us as we interpreted it, it meant that we've got to work with other parties. So this is precisely what we have done. Am I concerned that this is going to reduce the ANC, forever. No. I do believe that the ANC, in dealing with its own challenges, with the challenges that it has faced, will recover and will gain momentum. And in the end, of course, all parties will compete for the vote of the people of South Africa. So it is really up to the people of South Africa, as it was up to them in the 29 May elections, to choose the party that they want to represent. But in the end, the ANC still managed to get the higher votes than all other parties. And it is on this that the ANC is able to base its confidence that by doing things right, by even working with other parties, it will be able to deliver a better life to the people of South Africa. And so therefore, the government of national unity now gives all of us the best option of taking this country forward. This is the best that we could have, of 10 parties. And now the beauty of it all is that it's 10 parties working together. And there's nothing, and in fact, you do find that in a number of other environments and locales where parties in the end do find a way of working together to focus on how they can take their countries forward. Now this, for us, this opportunity has now occurred for us to do so. And the GNU is the main show in town. And we must take this country forward through the GNU. And the doubters will forever be there, like you. They'll forever be there, but our task is to be on this caravan and be part of this caravan that is moving and taking the country forward. And as the caravan moves, often, if you go to the desert, you'll always find that there are those who are running beside it and saying, stop, and please, we want to divert you and derail you. But this GNU caravan is moving on, my brother. It's moving on to improve the lives of South Africans.
Mr. President, there are two ladies that I'm scared of, and they're intimidating me.
Is Carol one of them?
They won't let me leave the Union building. So I'll start with Lizega, who hasn't had a chance. And then Carol, you'll have the last one. But please keep it so ever briefly, so that we can release the president. So Lizega?
Yes, I need to be.
Yes.
I need to go to Pravin Gordon's home.
Hello, Mr. President. Lizega Tandwa from Times Live. Mr. President, I know we've labored on this point around the Justice Minister and VBS. But given what has happened, what is your perceived rather, do you not perceive that there is a conflict of interest which has risen due to this loan issue? And do you not think that it imposes on you to take swift action to conclude this matter? My second question is whether the door is still open for other parties to join the GNU, for instance, the EFF and MK party. And Mr. President, my last question is around SOEs. There's been a debate in the past around your office holding so much power and taking so much power to your office. And now we have this bill that is going to Parliament around a holding company, which will be, according to the bill, will be also vested with you. We know that your party has a penchant for releasing or recalling presidents very early. And given that, Mr. President, you have a limited window and you have a limited time, legitimate or not, there is someone who's going to come after you. Do you not have any fears that this leaves us, it would leave us to a point where we could have a reversal to state capture when someone comes after you, succeeds you? And also there's been talk about parliamentary portfolio committee in terms of holding the presidency to account. What is your perspective on that?
It's exhausting. So many questions. Do you want to raise yours?
Okay. Yeah, Carol,
Okay.
you can go. Yeah.
All right, it's a quick question and a quick answer. Ste and I were just discussing before we came in here, how long has the president got before the business confidence fritters away? I mean, we had Ramaphosa, there was a huge spike in business confidence, and yet you played the long game and it didn't, and the Ramaphosa dissipated. How long do you think you've got now before you have to start showing results? 6 months, 12 months, 5 years?
Thank you. Yes.
Yes. On the issue of the Minister of Justice, I'm attending to this matter. I've now received the report and everything else, which I'm examining. So that issue is being addressed. And I've asked for time, space, so that I can apply my mind to all this. I asked the Minister to give me a report, which she has now done. And so that matter is being addressed. The issue of other parties wanting to join the GNU, when the negotiations ensued, we did say open to discussions with other parties. And in fact, the ANC was the one that really led the process in inviting parties. And all parties were spoken to without any exception. And those that in the end did not find their way clear to participate, it was really by dint of not really fully subscribing and accepting all the key elements of the statement of intent or wanting to work with others. So those that did come in also a bit late in the end, as we constructed the GNU, particularly the executive, we had run out of time and space, so they're part of us. In the legislatures, we work well together, so that is to be welcomed. Now, in the end, any party that may want to be part of this, they have to come forward. They have to say, we also now want to be part of the government of national unity, and we will listen to them, and we will see the extent to which they are able indeed to subscribe to what we have decided should bind us together, which is the principles that are set out in the statement of intent and everything else that goes with that. The issue of a parliamentary committee for the presidency, I did say in Parliament that that's a matter that we're going to give attention to. It's been expressed over a number of years, and we are going to be examining precisely how that would work. So that matter is under review. The issue of state-owned enterprises, it's not so much agglomerating all power in the presidency. What we've sought to do, and in many ways in implementing the decisions of my party, that that have policy accountability to ministries should revert back to their ministries, which is exactly what we have done. For instance, we had Transnet in the Department of Public Enterprises, but we have a Ministry of Transport which sets policy. We have said that it will revert back. And that is already standing us in good stead in that issues of policy, issues of regulation, and issues of looking closely at operations are now vested in a department, and of course they have to deal with avoiding conflicts of interest, because there can be conflicts of interest in doing so. What we are seeking to do is to have a coordinating structure through the holding company that we want to set up. It's a coordinating structure that will give us all line of sight of precisely what is happening in all the entities. and also to have a measure of uniformity where that applies. For instance, in board appointments, how do you get boards to be appointed? And in dealing with, say, things like board remuneration, in dealing with things like governance, dealing like things like financial reporting. So all these things at the moment are very different in relation to a variety of institutions. And having just come back from China, they have a structure that coordinates their state-owned enterprises, and it works extremely well. And it enhances accountability, and it also enhances transparency through that oversight body. There is no sense that, say, the president of China has agglomerated all power unto himself. It is more of a functional entity that enables government to work effectively. So that is what we are seeking to achieve, and to also have disciplines, financial disciplines, and there should be no entity that will go on for 5 years without providing financial reports. So that is then brought to light at the holding company level, because you're directly accountable for what you do. But in the end, yes, the ministry sets policy, and the policy has to speak to the overall overarching policy of the nation, of the country, as we move forward. Carol asked, how much time do we have? Now, you know, the so-called Ramaphosa was based on, yes, the hope and that we are now in a new era. Yes, we're dealing with a variety of things. Right now, the era that we are in now is based on a number of realities. And some of those realities have to do with what we are doing in a very direct way in government. It is based on, say, we're going to have reforms. And this is what we can pivot our hope and confidence on. And this is why I say involving the private sector, involving labor, involving government in the areas that we are working on forms a very big and important pillar of infusing confidence and hope. It's not based on just hope without substance. Now we can have confidence and substance that is based on things that are being done with good effect. And what are those things? The hope that we are going to position our economy in a much better way is based on what we are doing on electricity reform. Because electricity or energy drives the economy of any country. So we are reforming that. So it's something that's real. It's a real pillar. We're seeing improvement. Now, anyone who would want to invest would, the first question they would ask is that, is there energy sufficiently in that country for me to drive my factory operations? So what we are now doing in reforming our energy sector is a pillar, a strong pillar on which people can invest hope and confidence. And what we are doing, for instance, in logistics, is another important pillar that is going to lead to strengthening our economy. As we say, we want to improve our harbors, our harbor operations, and we're going to bring in the private sector to have concessions and be able to run certain aspects of our harbors. It's a pillar that infuses confidence. So it's not empty confidence, it's real confidence that people can pivot this broad confidence on. And for that reason, I believe that this confidence will keep growing as we implement our reforms. Because they are not reforms that are just happening in hidden corners. They are reforms that are being done with the participation of all. I meet business every 6 weeks. Not business, I meet the working groups rather, every 6 weeks. And they report to me the progress that they are making. And they all scurry around and say, we need to do work in this work stream, and that work stream working together jointly, because we are going to report to the president. And when we get to the president, we must give a good report. So when they come, of course, together with others, I then examine the progress that has been made. And everybody is encouraged to have made a great deal of progress. In examining that, I said, no, but guys, you are not hitting the mark here. We are not going to get this economy moving without moving the tonnage that we are putting through our rail system. Without moving it to a higher level, we are not going to. So go back and make sure that we improve the tonnage. Now, what does that do? It gives people, a task. It gives them something to do. It's not just empty. It's focused. And you were saying, hands-on. This is part of it. I'm working with people who know what the expectations are, and they must work on that. And on this, one is quite firm and hopeful that we are going to turn things around. In the past 5 years, we dealt with the vestiges of state capture, and we were putting in place systems and mechanisms, and I believe we're moving out of that. We're beginning to put things right and correct what was done wrong, but it's going to be a process of implementing those reforms and making sure that things do happen. For instance, on water, we set up a team and they came, reported, and I said, how long does it take to get a water license? It used to take 3 months and more, much more. No, not 3 months even, years. I remember because, I know, I put that's another story. But it used to take years just to have a water license. And I sent them back and I said, no, we cannot accept this. Go and find out why it is taking so long. We need to correct this. And they went back and they worked through, and that was almost like bashing heads together and saying, go and work. So it was private sector people in the department, and so on and so on. Finally, they came up with a solution. They said, Mr. President, we can do it in 57 days. And I said, wow, that is great, but I'd still like to see quicker action. Because sometimes things sit on desks for the longest time, and you don't even know why. People just take too long to get things. One of the things we want to do is to now move on to digitizing our government system so that we have a way of having a broad look at everything that's happened from a digital point of view and be able to ensure that we get things done quickly. So, Carol, is it 6 months? Is it more? I think with action that we are taking now, people will see that things are beginning to happen. And the consultative approach that I'm accused of, and I've been accused and condemned forever and a day, is paying dividends, because it is when you get people to work together that you are able to make progress. And that's why we're making progress. Even on things that seem intractable, like Bella, like NHR, we will make progress because we're going to get people to meet and to work together and to find solutions. That is my story. And I'd like to thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, that brings us to the end of this conversation with the President. President, they're indicating they want to go and do things they do on Fridays. Which is? Which we won't declare. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your time. And colleagues, thank you very much for a very meaningful conversation. Until next time, which will be soon, I hope. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, they don't have time to meet me. So